Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on Calgary's business. Joining me today is Peter Pilarski, who is Vice President of CIPR Communications. Thanks for joining us today, Peter.
Thanks for having me, Mario.
Okay, let's start with some questions regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the communications and marketing industries right now. Why is a communication strategy important for businesses during this crisis?
I always like to say, in the absence of good information and good communication, people always fill in the blanks. And right now, in a time of crisis like we are seeing right now, that happens more than ever. So if employees aren't being communicated to, if stakeholders such as clients and suppliers aren't being communicated to in a thoughtful way, they're going to come up to their own conclusions and make their own assumptions. And I think now more than ever, businesses need to be really focusing on number one, who their stakeholders are and what they need to communicate to each stakeholder group in a way to make sure that those stakeholders know what's going on, to make sure that they understand the direction and what's happening within the company and how that's being impacted by the COVID crisis. And so that they don't make their own conclusions and assumptions and start to create sort of toxic rumors about sort of what may or may not be going on in a company. So the other thing that's really important right now for companies is to really become human and to humanize their companies. We're going through a crisis that's unlike no other, and we're all humans dealing with real human emotions and real human issues. And so I think the more that companies can communicate at a time like this, the more they can just become human in the eyes of their customers, their stakeholders, and that helps them if they need to make important changes, pivots, layoffs, things like that in the future. Really robust communication right off the bat, humanizing the executives in a company will just help them to make those announcements and decisions in a more successful way.
So as you look at companies now, obviously they're in crisis mode. Lots of the companies had zero to little amount of revenue coming in. Should businesses sort of take a step back now and take a look at their operations, take a look at their business models, perhaps?
Yeah, right now it's absolutely critical for all companies, to really be thinking about everything they're doing from top to bottom. Especially on the communications and marketing front. Right now is the time to challenge everything you've been doing, everybody you've been selling to. Ask some really tough questions. Have we been achieving the results we were looking to achieve? Are the target audiences we're identified as our ideal target audiences, are those still audiences going to exist in the future? Right now in Calgary, especially, with the oil and gas price, we're being hit with a double whammy, and we're working with a couple of companies successfully that are that actually before the crisis were starting to pivot outside of the oil and gas Calgary market to North America for different opportunities where they might be able to serve different customers. And right now is the time to do that. It's just critical, and there's a lot of good ways to do it. It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. It could be just a matter of getting on the phone and talking to customers, talking to suppliers, asking your staff what they think. What channels do we think we should be marketing and communicating through? You might be amazed with what you find out when you start asking a lot of questions, and you can ask those questions through phone calls. You can put up quick, simple surveys that you can sort of send out to your audiences. Many ways to skin that cat, but right now is really the time to think through everything you're doing as a business, everything you've been doing from a marketing communications perspective, and to reevaluate whether those things are working or not.
Tough times right now for business to decide what to do when it comes to spending money. Obviously, when little money is coming in, it's tough to spend money, right? So should businesses do what I describe as turtling, right? Like the boxer goes into the corner and just protects themselves and takes the blows to the stomach, etc. Should they be doing that and just riding it out, or should they be more aggressive and come out positive, and doing something with their marketing and communications?
Yeah, so I always like to say that the best defense is a strong offense. And study after study over decades has shown that companies that invest in marketing and communications during time of crisis, during time of economic slowdown, always come out better than the companies that don't. I mean, the reality is that not all companies are going to come out of this in existence, and there's going to be opportunities for companies that are making the right investments, making themselves known to their community, to pick up some of that market share that's lost by companies that aren't going to exist. And so, right now it's critically important for companies to make themselves as visible as possible, but they got to do so carefully. This isn't a time to go out and do aggressive sales-oriented marketing. This is a time to be adding value, to be showing your community what your company is all about, to be putting your values and as a company forward, and really just doing everything you can to build a community and a sense of community in your target audience in a way that's not sort of hard sales focused, but it's really about value addition. To give you an example, a couple of things we've been doing here at CIPR Communications is we've been offering weekly free webinars on marketing and communication to anybody that wants to join us. We've been doing things like Monday morning coffee and Thursday afternoon beer over Zoom, and no strings attached, no agenda. We just get together with whoever wants to get together and have a bit of time socializing together. And we've already started to see the positive benefits of these things. And these things don't have to be hard. They don't have to be complicated. It's just about sort of getting out there, being visible, making your brand as friendly as possible, so that the companies that are looking for new suppliers, new vendors, know that you're there. Those are good short-term strategies. In the longer term, in terms of things you could be doing right now, certainly investments in your website, in search engine optimization, digital marketing. It's funny. I noticed just over this weekend, looking for some stuff for my backyard, for my gardening, how poor a lot of the websites are. Just companies never had to worry about it. And now is the time to start thinking about it and making those investments for your long-term future.
So there's a lot of options out there for businesses in this day and age. What are some of the most important marketing channels they can invest in now to help them out?
Sure. So it's a bit of a hard question to answer in the sense that every company is a little bit different, and depending on the vertical, depending if you're B2B, B2C, whatever. But overall, I would say, and I always say this to everybody, is that your website is your most important asset online, and it's the thing that you should be always investing in the most, no matter what. At CIPR Communications, we always say that your website is your home. And your marketing channels, such as social media and digital marketing, are all really directions to get people home. And so right now, really, it's about taking care of your house, making sure that your foundation's as strong as possible, making sure that your website is converting properly, and all those types of things. Websites have changed over time, and websites actually, I think, right now are more important than ever. And so making the right investments into your website are critical. And a couple of things that you could be doing right now is agencies like mine offer competitive analysis reports where you can see what your competitors are doing online on their websites compared to what you're doing. A web quality audit to understand sort of what your website's doing. Is it performing for you, and are you achieving your objectives? These are all simple and relatively inexpensive things you could be doing to sort of make your website better than it is now, and to really future focus your company. In addition to your website, though, I always find it interesting that people say, "Well, I have a website now, so we're good to go." Well, that's only half the battle. The other half the battle is actually marketing your website. And one activity I always advise everybody, doesn't matter what and who you are, is search engine optimization or content marketing. At the end of the day, if you're not involved in some kind of content-driven search engine optimization program as a business right now, you're likely going to struggle into the future. These are critical activities and the types of marketing that people should be investing in today to make sure that they're ready for tomorrow.
Now, when you look at the COVID pandemic, what do you think is going to be the long-term impact of this on the marketing and communications industry? And what does it mean for businesses today?
Yeah, so I think long term, it's going to be kind of interesting in the sense that I think it's going to really change the mix that businesses have when it comes to marketing people in-house and communications people in-house versus use of consultants. And we're already seeing this now. We've had several companies come to us over the last few weeks saying, I had to lay off my employees because I could no longer keep them going, but I do still need to do marketing and communications. And so, can you help, right? And really, we're even noticing this in my business. And the reality is marketing and communications in the digital era is becoming much more complicated. And it really requires a different kind of specialist in a lot of cases to solve some problems and achieve some objectives. And so, companies really, I think long term, and I think COVID's going to really result in a dramatic shift in this direction. Companies need to be thinking about their staff to consultant mix and really understanding which staff they need to accomplish their goals and how consultants can step in and sort of fill in the blanks. And so, for example, a lot of companies can't afford both a high-level strategist and a sort of a tactician to implement strategies. And really, that's where, in my experience, the companies that do best when it comes to marketing and communications are the ones that, really have an internal project manager that has a generalist skill set when it comes to marketing and communications, and then hire an agency like ours that can help drive the strategy and help kind of bring in the right technical consultants where needed to implement specific solutions, right? The world's just become very complicated. And so I think long-term, really, it's that mix of, do I really need all these staff? Does this really make sense for my business long-term? And even in my own business as a marketing agency, I mean, we have basically generalists with marketing experience who help implement solutions and strategies for clients. And then we use a series of consultants that are real technicians in each specific aspect, depending on the need of the client. And that just is a good business strategy and a mix for the long term of the company.
Okay, thanks a lot for joining us today, Peter.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mario.
That was Peter Pilarski, who is Vice President with CIPR Communications. This has been Business Insider with Mario Tonaguzzi on Calgary Business. Thanks for joining us today.